Very happy to hear the report. I don't know if you can hear me, you're muted, so I don't know if you are even there.
We just had a ton of rain, so that's helped a lot this year.
Yeah. We have had a lot of rain.
We redid our drips. So
Are your cucumbers, do you actually have cucumbers? Because right now we
Oh,
just
yeah.
have foliage like this
no,
much.
I have cucumbers this long, and
Wow.
That thick around, and
Wow,
they
you're
just
lucky.
keep. Well, I mean, we are lucky because this is the first year we've ever had any success of anything.
Christopher, I'm gonna just stay up here a few minutes.
Okay. Have we seen you here before?
No.
Okay, and your name is?
Carly.
Carly.
Yes.
I'm Christopher.
Nice to
This
meet
is
you.
Brian. This is Matthew.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Have you studied Buddhism before?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. What, Tibetan?
Tibetan.
Okay,
Yes.
Mahayana?
Yes, Mahayana. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, well, that's what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Ah. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good to see you, Roxanne.
Good to see you too, Christopher.
Hi, Merritt. Merritt's just her name is there.
Guess I'll rename myself.
I'm here.
Okay, now I'm gonna see if we can just. Yeah, it's being recorded, and on the emails that I send out are links to the previous recordings. Whatever, yeah, whoever it goes out, the Buddhism Center, it's the TBCWP email list. Yeah. Oh,
That's okay.
okay. And there's enough emails, right? Really. Okay, this little thing we share.
I'm saying hello, but I'm gonna go back on mute and off camera because I got some things going on in the background.
Okay.
But I'm here. I'm glad you are too.
Glad you're here.
Okay,
It's nice to see you, Merritt.
good to see you too.
All right, where are we? Share screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you enable me to share the screen, Kavita? I just want to put the prayers up there for people. Okay. Says I can't start it while you're sharing. Let me try it. There we go. Okay, can everybody see the prayers? All right, great. And you all have prayers. Okay. So we're going to open up. Now, you guys probably haven't been to the previous sessions, right?
No, I've just watched.
Okay. So there were these prayers that we're going to say kind of outline are an outline form some of the visualizations that we did at the beginning. And I'll talk more about that after we say the prayers, but we'll start with taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. And this is basically taking a safe direction in the guidance of the Buddhas and the path of the Dharma and the help of the Sangha, those who are along the path with you or further along the path, until we become enlightened. Okay, so we'll do this in the Tibetan transliteration. Sangye chodang soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gipe sonam ki rola penchir sangye duruparsho sangye chodang soki chognam la Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi daki chenyen gibe sonam ki rola penchir sangye duruparsho sangye chodang sogi chognam la Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi Dagi chenyen gipe sonam ki rola penchir sangye druparsho. And the next prayer we'll do are the four immeasurable thoughts. This is also part of the initial visualization that we will do today as well. And this is that you're wishing that all sentient beings have happiness, be free from suffering, be inseparable from joy, and abide in equanimity. So we'll read this together once in English. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Then we'll skip the invocation of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We'll move to the seven-limb prayer. And those of you who were here last week, we did a visualization of this seven-limb prayer, and this is of the seven-limb practice. And this is the seven-limb practice in an outline prayer form. So just to kind of jog your memory, if you were participating last week, we will say this prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to the great enlightenment. The great enlightenment refers to the enlightenment of all living beings. And then we also did this last week. This is a mandala offering, and we will, it's a chant, and we'll do the Tibetan, but basically what you would visualize here is a completely purified universe, and visualize it in any way that is meaningful to you. A universe where all sentient beings, all living beings are free from all suffering, free from all ignorance. All their qualities have developed to the highest level possible. The wisdom is developed to the highest level possible. Everything is functioning in perfect harmony. Okay, and so we visualize that as we chant this particular mandala offering. Ozaji Perki Jokshin Meto Tramri Rablingji Nidegen Padi Sangye Jingdu mi de ulwagi Rokunam dakshina chapasho idam guru ratna mandala kam niryataya. Okay, so before we get into this opening visualization, I'll just talk a little bit about the process of how we're going to be doing this in the next couple of weeks. This is 5 sessions. This is the 3rd session. The first session, at the beginning, there was a guided visualization meditation type thing that has to do with what are called the 6 preparatory practices. These are practices that you engage in to get your mind focused and with the proper intention and the proper motivation for whatever the practice you're going to be doing, the meditation practice or the teaching or the reading or whatever it may be. So the preliminary practice that we did in the first session, and we're going to do it again today, was where you sit in the proper posture, you do a breathing exercise to sort of neutralize your mind, and then you visualize in front of you the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, group of sentient beings. You take a refuge or safe direction in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and you develop an altruistic intention to become a Buddha yourself so that you can help all sentient beings be free from suffering, attain happiness, become enlightened themselves. So that's the particular one we'll do today. What we did last week was that the 7 limb practice, and what we will do that again next week. So we're alternating them so that on the 5th week, we can go through the entire set of preparatory practices because they're complex, they're involved. I've tried to simplify them as much as possible because when you look at the traditional Tibetan versions of this, it's extremely complex and complicated, and that can get in your way. Our particular guru, Geshe Drakpa, Geshe Drakpa Gelek, when he was teaching us these, he said, yes, you can definitely simplify these. You do what you need to do to make it work, especially for our culture. I think a lot of the almost medieval hierarchy and things that are involved in these visualizations are very foreign to us, and you really can get bogged down in that. And if we just get to the basic, what we're trying to do, it's more meaningful. So before we get into this first visualization, which is taking a safe direction in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and generating an altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, I want to talk a little bit about what the Buddha is, what the Guru is, and that why we have what Buddha nature is, why we can actually develop into a Buddha. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Dharma and the Sangha. So a Buddha, an enlightened being, is someone who has developed all of their good qualities to their highest potential. They've removed all of their afflictive emotions, all of their disturbing emotions, all of the negative qualities, we might say, or the destructive qualities of the mind and emotions. They've also developed their wisdom to its utmost potential, to a potential which would seem unimaginable to us, to the level of omniscience. So a Buddha, however, was not born as a Buddha. A Buddha is not a God, creator God, or is not considered to be a substitute for that either. A Buddha was at one time beings like us, sentient beings that are to no fault of our own, because this is an evolutionary process. It's an evolutionary process of consciousness and the form that accompanies consciousness. So it's not as if there's some fault that we have, some, original fault that's a problem that we have. It's an evolutionary process. The Buddha was part of this evolutionary process. He has achieved the height of evolution in terms of consciousness and the form a consciousness can take, and is helping us to do the same. I think that's pretty good in terms of just a simple explanation of what the Buddha is. And we can all become Buddhas. So Buddhas was once being like us, just like us, and we can do the same. Now I want to talk a bit about what the guru is, what a guru is. The guru would be something like an emissary, or even you could say an emanation of the Buddha in the world of appearances that we have, that we can actually directly relate with, talk to. They can help us. They can see our particular personality. They can size us up, exactly what kind of things we need, how we need to be coaxed, pushed, helped along the way, along this path. When Shakyamuni Buddha passed away in over almost 3,000 years ago, if you look at the current estimates of when the Buddha existed, it's almost 3,000 years ago. When he passed away, the people following him were saying as he was dying, what are we going to do? How, with you gone, how are we going to, who's going to help us? And he said, I will work through the gurus. I will work through the gurus going forward. So the guru is a person who is in this life, is a person we can deal with directly. They are, ideally, they would be part of a lineage that goes all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. For instance, Geshe Dragpa, who I just held up the picture, he's part of a lineage that one of his teachers was the Dalai Lama himself, then the Dalai Lama's personal teachers, Trijang Rinpoche, Ling Rinpoche, then going back all the way to Tsongkhapa, who was the founder of their particular tradition, Gelug tradition. Tsongkhapa goes all the way back to Manjushri, Maitreya, and then to the Buddha. So it's a direct, what it is, it's a direct consciousness to consciousness link, coming all the way from Shakyamuni Buddha to your guru, then to you. So what we would have, Geshe Dragpa would give us transmissions and things like this. This was a direct consciousness to consciousness link that he was making with us. It's not the same as reading something in a book. Books are great. They're very helpful, but books are not consciousness. They're not actually that direct link. And that's what the guru has. Our job is to try and see the guru as best as possible, to see the guru as this emissary of the Buddha. Now, it will always happen when we have a guru that we're going to find faults, but what we're doing is we're projecting our own state of mind onto the guru. So we have to be aware that that's what we're doing, but it will always come up. What we have to do is just remind ourselves, for instance, if the guru were to do something that you maybe were shocked by, or in some case, I remember one case where I was terribly scolded by one of my teachers, and it was just such a shock because I didn't even know where it was coming from. But immediately I thought, this must be some kind of lesson for me. And it was some kind of lesson for me. And I thought later about that and realized that it was a lesson about humility, and not making assumptions. So that's the way you try and look at those things, when you're working with a guru. So you can think in this visualization, we'll be thinking of the guru and the Buddha as one being, okay? And if you don't have a guru right now, Jen, then you just think of the Buddha as your guru. And when the time is right, if and when the time is right, and it's what is right for you, then there will be somebody, preferably with a lineage like that, who will come into your life, and you will recognize that. And you will begin to feel a strong connection, and you will take them on as your guru, or they will take you on as their student. I want to talk about why we're able to become a Buddha, what it is about our nature, what it is about our consciousness that enables us to become a Buddha. We have what is called a clear light mind. And the clear light mind is the subtlest form of mental activity. It continues with no ending, no beginning, without any break. It continues through death. It continues all the way to Buddhahood, this clear light mind. It is pure awareness and clarity. It is non-conceptual. There's no cognition there. There's no conceptual thought as part. Conceptual thought is a grosser level of consciousness. What we're talking about is the most subtle level of consciousness, is pure awareness. There's no conceptual thought. There is no appearance making in the clear light mind. There is no, like the kind of appearance making we have here, which is more gross consciousness. We have self and other phenomena, or subject, object. We see all kinds of things, appearances. There's none of that going on in the clear light mind. It's completely void of appearances, void of conceptual thought. It has the ability to be aware, comprehend, understand. It has a quality to it that is continually expanding. There are meditations that you can do, and we will do in the final one of these sessions. We will do a meditation that helps to get towards that clear light mind. It takes a while. It's not that easy to do, but you can do it, and it's constantly expanding. There is no conceptual thought. There is no visual anything, auditory anything. It has the ability to be inspired and to grow. So that's our clear light mind. And there are qualities of that mind, what is called Buddha nature. And I went over this last week. We'll go over it again. There are 5 of these qualities. The first they call, and these are qualities that exist for every conscious being, not just Buddhas. Every conscious being has these qualities. The first is a mirror-like awareness, meaning that a conscious being can take in, like a mirror takes in, everything. So if you just think of yourself, right now you're taking in the sounds of the air conditioner, the sights that you're seeing, whatever sounds you're hearing there, sights, smells, tastes, touches, the sensations, and your mental thoughts. You're taking it all in at once, just the way a mirror does. Then there is an awareness, which is they call the sphere. It would be the sphere of your existence. So for instance, humans, we're aware of our environment. We're aware that we're living on this planet, on the earth. We're aware of the atmosphere. We're aware that there are things like galaxies and universes and stars and things like that. For an ant is aware of the ground that it lives on, the anthill that it's digging, the other ants around it, what's going on, the blades of grass, other predators, things like that. Every being is aware of their sphere of existence. A Buddha is aware of everything, the entire universe, everything that can be known, the Buddha is aware of. And also with the mirror-like awareness, the Buddha can take in everything. And so when the sphere of existence, the Buddha understands how things work. The Buddha understands that things are empty of existing independently from their own side. Everything is a dependent arising. The Buddha is thoroughly aware of that. Then there's another nature, and this is the nature. It's a funny name. It's called the nature of equality, but it's the ability that we have to put similar things into categories. Let's see. Well, it was easy in this room. I mean, you could say everything in this room, all of the furniture, the walls, everything is, you could say, man-made. Man-made. It's in that category. You can then focus the category more. You can say all of the couches, the chairs, they all are furniture. Or you could say they're all chairs. But then you could add the tables and things like that, and you could say that's furniture. So we have this ability to put things into categories. Animals, insects, they have the same ability. It's quite clear. If you look at them and study, they can tell what's food, what isn't food, what's a predator, what isn't a predator, where do I build my house. They understand what the categories of things are. And as I said, a Buddha can discern, what the Buddha sees in terms of the Buddha's wisdom of equality is he sees that every being equally wants to be happy and does not want to suffer. And every conscious being equally has the potential to become enlightened, to become a Buddha. That's what a Buddha can see. as well as everything else. Buddha can also see, clearly can see, well, comes into the next one. Then there's a fourth category, which is they call the nature of discernment. So we're able to see the specific characteristics of something. All conscious beings can see the specific characteristics of something. We can see that, the rug on the side of the end of that couch, it's many different colors. It has designs on it. It comes from Peru. These are Peruvian designs. I mean, there's ways that we can get into detail and understand the specifics. This particular couch has a floral pattern. It's gray, shades of gray. It's just like that. And all beings can do that. In terms of a Buddha can see the specific characteristics of every sentient being. He can see a Buddha, he or she can see exactly what our karma is, our history is, why we are the way we are, what would need to be said or done in order to make a difference to help us along the way. The Buddha is omniscient. And the fifth one, the ability, this is the awareness or the ability of accomplishing things. We all know how to do things. We know how to, look at people, look at what humans can do, the things that they can build. Everything that can be accomplished by humans is incredible. The cars, the roads, the buildings, the infrastructures, everything. It's just, you can see this ability to accomplish. You can see it with animals, what they can do, the building the nest, the building the little ant mound in the colony, whatever it is, a sentient being, the fish, they have the ability to accomplish things. This is something consciousness can do. In terms of the Buddha has the ability to accomplish, to help us to enlightenment, to make that accomplishment. The Buddha has accomplished that for themselves. The Buddhists have accomplished that for themselves. So this is called Buddha nature. This is why all sentient beings are able to eventually, over time, through evolution, grow to become an enlightened being. So I wanted to sort of clarify that. And then the next thing is the Dharma. What is the Dharma? So we talked about the Buddha, the Guru, sentient beings. Now, what is the Dharma? The Dharma is a Sanskrit word which basically it means to hold or contain something. And what it's talking about is something that holds us back from committing any harm to ourselves or others. It holds us back from committing harm to ourselves or others. In Tibetan, they use the word Che, which is translated C-H-O with an umlaut over the O. It's Che. And Che has three parts to it. It's the ability to keep yourself from committing any harmful act of your mind or emotions, the ability to keep yourself from committing any harmful act of your body, or your body, and then the other one is the ability to keep yourself from a harmful act of speech. So it's avoiding harmful acts of body, speech, and mind for yourself or others. So that's basically what we're talking about with Dharma. It does not have to be, it doesn't have to be the traditional Dharma from the Buddha. When we're talking about what is Dharma, it's anything that holds you back from committing harm, to yourself and others through your body, speech, and mind. In terms of Buddhism, the Dharma refers to the teachings given by the Buddha, all of those teachings which have been passed down through this lineage I've been talking about, consciousness to consciousness to consciousness to consciousness, passed down, so that if you follow these teachings step by step, and practice this, it will lead you gradually to this ultimate state of enlightenment. And that's what the Dharma is. Then when we're talking about the Sangha are all of those very highly realized beings, all such as beings who have had a direct, non-conceptual experience of emptiness or of the nature of reality, the empty nature of reality, but have not yet combined that with an altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So they're not yet Buddhas. all the way from that kind of high realization to what you'd say a high level bodhisattva, someone who has dedicated their life to the benefit of all sentient beings and has had some direct experiences of the nature of reality, of emptiness, but has not yet, completed the process all the way to Buddhahood. Then you take that all the way down to, say, monks and nuns, in our, who we see now living in our community, as well as those of us who are on the path, who are sort of helping one another, encouraging one another. So that's the Dharma. They're sort of like your fellow travelers on this step by step by step by step by step path to enlightenment. So with that, we can now go into the opening visualization. So the one of these preliminary practices is the posture itself. And I would say the most important part of this posture is that your spine is straight. The way I'm sitting right now, kind of on a cushion with my my butt is raised up a little more than my knees, is considered to be the ideal, the one you're supposed to do. But you can do it in any chair or anything like that. You just want to have as straight a spine as possible. Your chin slightly tucked in. Your tongue is at the roof of your mouth where your teeth meet your upper palate. Your eyes can be closed or open, but if they're open, they would be sort of almost half open, sort of gazing down into the space in front of you. Your hands can either be resting on your knees, or you can have them in a mudra, which is you have your right hand resting in your right open hand resting in your left open palm, and the thumbs are touching together. And that would be just slightly below your navel where you would hold it. And we start with a series of 9 breaths. And this has to do with basically bringing us into a neutral state of mind. And as you visualize these breaths, what we're going to be doing is we'll be taking in 3 breaths. Just imagine that the breath is coming in through your right nostril, sort of going up to the crown of your head. Then the breath is traveling down to the right side of your spine, goes to the base of your spine, makes a U-turn, and on the out breath, it goes up the left side of the spine, up to the crown of your head, and then back down and out through the left nostril. What we're working here is with what they call winds and channels, which I won't go into a lot of explanation of now. I did in the past two classes, but the consciousness, there are these they're invisible channels throughout the entire body, and the consciousness travels through these channels. The consciousness exists in all parts of your body. It's just not like in our brain, and it rides on these what they call winds, which are very, very subtle energy. And what we're doing is we're consciously bringing these winds in through the left nostril, up through the crown, down the right side, making a U-turn at the base of the spine, up the left side of the spine, to the crown, and back out through the left nostril. We do that 3 times. Then we reverse it, and we start with the other nostril and do that 3 times in the other direction. And then the 3rd time, what we do is we breathe in through both nostrils. The air goes up to the crown on both sides. It comes down both sides of the spine. Then at the base, it goes up through what they would say is the central channel, which is right in front of the spine, and then all the way up and out through the crown. Okay, so just practice now. We'll start with the right and do these 3 breaths. Now reverse the direction and do that 3 times. Now breathe in through both nostrils up to the crown, down either side of the central channel, and then at the base come up through the central channel and then out through the top of the crown. Now just breathe regularly in and out. Imagine in the space in front of you a radiant clarity. And think this is the mind, the consciousness of the Buddha. As you breathe in, feel that the Buddha is communicating with you, connecting with you. As you breathe out, feel that you are connecting with the Buddha. Feel that all your problems and mental difficulties are released as you breathe out and connect with the Buddha. Now notice that color begins to form at the center of this radiant clarity. Like light being refracted through a prism, 5 stainless colors begin to appear. Blue, white, red, yellow, and green. These colors begin to merge together and form the figure of the Buddha. Sitting in an open lotus on a magnificent platform. All of this is made of light, like a very clear stainless light that you would see in a rainbow. The Buddha is emanating tremendous loving kindness, great compassion, and profound wisdom. In front of you, and on either side of you, and behind you, now imagine there are countless other sentient beings, all facing toward the Buddha, just as you are. Imagine that these sentient beings are undergoing the various sufferings, temporary happinesses, ups and downs that all sentient beings experience. But imagine that they all take on human form with a human mind that can comprehend the Dharma, that can comprehend the teachings of the Buddha. You and all sentient beings are looking to the Buddha as a guide that will safely lead you out of the state that you're in into complete happiness, liberation, and enlightenment. Just as you would never take an unknown path without a guide who had been there before you and knew the way, we are seeing in the Buddha a safe guide an experienced guide who can safely lead us on the path from where we are now to enlightenment. There is a chant in Pali, which was the original language of the Buddha, that is for the first part of this refuge, which is basically taking a safe direction in the Buddha. And the words are Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddha, of course, means an enlightened being. Saranam means safe direction. Gacchami means I take. So in the Buddha, I take safe direction. So we will chant this together 3 times. You can repeat after me. And visualize radiant nectar. As you're chanting this, visualize radiant nectar emanating from the Buddha, entering into your body and removing any obstacles that you may have to following the guidance of such an experienced teacher, such an experienced guide. Think of the Buddha as your guru. If you have a guru in this life, think of this as your guru in the form of the Buddha. If not, just think of the Buddha as your guru, your personal teacher, your personal spiritual guide. So now we'll chant this. You can repeat after me and visualize this nectar entering your body, removing all obstacles to the guidance of the Buddha. Buddham, repeat.
Buddham
Saranam,
Saranam
Gacchami.
Gacchami.
Buddham, Saranam, Gacchami. Buddham, Saranam, Gacchami. Now imagine that there's a resonance, a frequency emanating from the Buddha. This resonance enters your body and has a very healing effect, a very corrective effect. Think of this resonance as the Dharma, the step-by-step pathways of consciousness that lead us from where we are now to complete happiness and enlightenment. As we say the next part of the chant, which is Dhammam, which is Dharma, Saranam Gacchami. Visualize this resonance as a radiant nectar entering your body and removing all obstacles you have or may have to following the path, these pathways of consciousness. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. And feel that all obstacles to the Dharma have been removed. Now visualize beings of light that are traveling on these rays, these resonant rays of the Dharma. This represents the Sangha, from the highly realized beings to the monks and nuns who live among us, and even to those friends who are around us, who are traveling on the path with us. We see these as helpers along the way, those who can encourage us, lift us up, inspire us along the path. And as we say the last part of the chant, which is Sangam Saranam Gacchami, we imagine that all the obstacles that we may have to engaging with the Sangha in a positive and beneficial way are removed. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. Now turn your attention to all of the sentient beings surrounding you and recognize that just like you, since beginningless time, everyone, whether they are your friends, whether you see them as enemies, whether you see them as strangers, every sentient being has been trying to find a way to be happy, has been trying to find a way to get rid of their problems. We've tried this over and over and over and over, and yet we still wind up short. We still only can achieve temporary happiness. Always there is some problem that comes along, and ultimately our life will end with some sort of sickness or suffering or aging, and then death. And over and over and over it goes. And there are various levels of happiness and various levels of suffering, but it keeps cycling around and around and around and around. And now you think, I have met the Dharma here. I have made contact with the Buddha. There is a Sangha. What can I do about this now? Not only do I want to achieve happiness for myself, but I really wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. All sentient beings who, just like me, want to be happy and do not want to suffer. And then you make a commitment to yourself that you will engage in these pathways of consciousness, the Dharma. You will follow them step by step. You will generate an altruistic intention to attain complete enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings who are interdependently connected. And with that thought, the Buddha in front of you is extremely happy. And the Guru Buddha generates a duplicate of himself from his heart, that duplicate comes to the top of your crown, facing in the same direction as you. And begins to merge into you, so that your clear light mind, the mind that it's at its most subtle, that is completely non-conceptual, there is no appearance making, just a radiant clarity. Your clear light mind merges with the Buddha's clear light mind. That radiant clarity, they merge together. And begin to feel that your entire being is becoming transformed. That you turn into or transform into a being of light, like the Buddha, radiating light in all directions. And imagine that you have become the Buddha that you have the potential to become. And as you radiate this light out, it first touches other sentient beings with whom you have a connection. And just as the Buddha did with you, this connection that you have with other sentient beings helps to transform them into the Buddhas that they have the potential to become. They then make connections with others, and on it goes. So bring yourself up like 40,000 feet and look down in this scene. And one by one, by one, by one, and then exponentially, countless sentient beings are becoming enlightened. They're connecting with one another. They're following the path, becoming the Buddhas that they have the potential to see. Until you see a vision of a great enlightenment. And as you look down on this scene, think to yourself, wouldn't it be wonderful if all sentient beings had happiness and its causes? If all sentient beings were free from suffering and its causes? If all sentient beings experienced a joy that had no suffering whatsoever, completely free of suffering? And wouldn't it be wonderful if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, without bias, without attachment towards some and hatred towards others? Then think, I will do something about this. I will work to make this happen. And then think, may I be inspired by my gurus and the Buddhas to have the ability to do this. Then bring yourself back down to where you were, seated in front of the Buddha, surrounded by this mass enlightenment. And imagine that all these enlightened sentient beings around you are drawn into the heart of the Buddha in front of you. And then your Guru Buddha comes to the crown of your head, containing this vision that you have, this mass, this great enlightenment. And the Guru Buddha goes down your central channel to your heart, where there is an open lotus. And the Guru Buddha, with this vision of this great enlightenment that you hold, is kept there in your heart, and the lotus closes. So now we can open our eyes. And that is what the preliminary practice that is to really get our minds suffused with this intention, this altruistic intention, to do what it takes to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And it really doesn't matter how long it takes, because as I was saying before, our clear light mind, our actual most subtle consciousness is beginningless and endless. And whatever moment we're experiencing is a present moment. So we don't have to worry about how long this is going to take. We just do it. And we do it with confidence and enthusiasm and a real sense of connection and gratitude for the Guru Buddhas who are helping us along the way, and the Sangha. So that particular preparatory practice is basically called assuming the posture, doing the 9 breaths, and generating an altruistic intention. But it can be, the way I did it is quite simplified compared to the way it can be done in traditional Tibetan practices. If you are interested in the traditional Tibetan practices, this one book, Jorcha, is very good, and it goes through in great detail all of the things you can visualize. Also, this book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, is a series of teachings given by Pabonka Rinpoche in Tibet during the 1920s. And he goes through in great detail these preliminary practices. This book also was, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Venerable Rabina Korten. She's a Buddhist nun, quite a presence on YouTube. She is one of the editors for this book. So, yeah.
You should give a plug for
Oh yeah,
starting July 11th.
July 11th, we're going to have teachings with Rabina, Venerable Rabina. And is that going to be how many weeks?
4 weeks.
4 weeks on Sundays.
Sundays.
Yeah, and it's Zoom. It'll be Zoom.
She's not going to physically come. She wants to do an hour and a half. She
Yeah.
set the time and the duration.
Yeah, and
One day of the week. Huh?
Bodhicitta.
She's going to, I'd asked her, requested that she go into some detail in the process, the visualization and like the detail that's in there, developing bodhicitta.
And what bodhicitta is that altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all. What we just went through was sort of to try to develop our bodhicitta. She'll be talking a lot more about that.
And you know, Brian, it's funny, I asked her this topic because, to be blunt, I feel that I myself am very lazy. And even though I have been taught the process, I don't do it hardly ever. Huh?
The chickens and everything else, yeah. That's life, right? That's our challenge, really.
Well, you know, I mean, in some of these things, I mean, it doesn't actually take extra time. During the course of the day, you can just sort of remember the things when you're being annoyed about. Yeah, I mean, if I were to summarize, instead of feeling put upon and overextended and tired and fatigued, one could use this process to feel motivated, enthused, and gung ho. Well, that's the idea.
No. Well, we gotta start somewhere. I mean, we have to develop some habit, you know.
Well, you know, Robina always says, "Fake it till you make it." So,
Yeah. And really,
so this
fake it
is
till
the
you make it.
fake it
It's
part.
good.
Teaching us on how to fake it.
Yeah, we have to start somewhere. It's basically habits of mind and body and speech, really. Before we get into the topic about ethics from Beyond Religion, is a book by His Holiness, I wanted to talk a little bit about one. He discussed in the past couple of sessions, we talked about destructive emotions and how there are different families of emotions, destructive emotions. So there's an anger family, which has malice, enmity, hatred. There's an attachment family that has lust, greed, craving, desire. There is a envy family, which has mixtures of, desire and anger. As what I want to talk about is the doubt. the afflictive doubt family, because that is a difficult one. It's hard for us to wrap our minds about what is he talking about with afflictive doubt. And they just say that the antidote, that the opposing force that you would apply for afflictive doubt is understanding. And so I want to go a little more into that, because afflictive doubt results in things like depression, anxiety, panic disorder, and extreme guilt. So it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one, and it's a difficult one to sort of figure out how to pull yourself out of, and what do you do? I can, and I would welcome anybody else joining in on this, but I will just give you, without the details, I will just tell you about my own experience with this. When I was in my young teens, there was a traumatic event, a traumatic thing that happened to me that caused me to go into a state of, it was a combination of shame and guilt and then depression. And the adults in my life could not help me with this, because they were part of what the problem was. They were part of what the trauma, what had occurred. And finally, well, I won't even say finally, the experience of this, what it was complete self-absorption. So depression is complete absorption on yourself, and we don't realize when we get into that state of depression or anxiety or extreme guilt, but it always sort of goes to a depression. It's you're taking the blame or the anger that you may have, and you don't know where to go with it, and so you turn it in on yourself. And this is can be very, very destructive. And the thing that happened was, finally, I was able to find an adult who I could talk to, who listened to me, and then helped me sort of move out of it. And I remember when I really pulled out of it, it took a whole bunch of courage. The thing that I remembered was, I felt I need to muster the courage to just sort of get out of this, get out there and involved with other people, other kids, other stuff, and just move forward. And it was the way I remember it was, there's just somebody helped me, and then there was a huge amount of courage that was required to shift out of that sort of downward spiral. And I would welcome anybody else who can talk about this kind of thing, and if they their experience and how they were able to move out of it, because I know it is extremely difficult. It's a very difficult thing for people to deal with. The antidotes aren't as clear, the opposing forces aren't as clear how to apply it. So anybody have any other suggestions on this when you're in a state of depression or anxiety? How do you get yourself out of it? What is it? What's going on?
Well, I suppose having a guru or a guide or a person who can help you facilitate the process is very helpful. So that's one thing. As you found something else that could help. Sometimes, as Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, just keep on going, because that's the path to get through it. You just have to kind of keep plugging along and plugging along and plugging along. There's not a lot of shortcuts to kind of get stuff done in life. You just have to show up and do the work. Sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes it's frustrating. You have to mobilize people to really hard to do that. I also think that, again, this is, most of these afflictions are afflictions of the mind. And the benefit of Buddhism is to train, allows you to train your mind, not only recognize these afflictions, but to understand that they actually are not, they're not, the words practical, they're not real, they're not things to be concerned about, because we all feel these ways because we get attached to certain things, certain ideas, certain ways of life, and we think about things that unfortunately, in the long way, from a Buddhist perspective, that causes a great deal of pain, anger, agony, upset, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, understanding something about the fact that, the best way to bring happiness to yourself is by bringing happiness to others. So, one of the other ways is to do something that helps somebody else.
Mhm.
And helping somebody else, help yourself.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know if all of you could hear that. Brian was. So a couple of things he was
Ask
saying.
people if they could hear it.
Could you all hear that? No. Um, Brian was saying one of the things is
You have to set the room up.
if you have a guru,
Now on this Zoom.
somebody who you can follow, like a teacher can help you tremendously. Just as like in the case I was talking about, there was an adult who helped me, but an actual guru, like a teacher, a Buddhist teacher, can really, really help you quite a lot. The other thing Brian was saying is sometimes just pushing through it. He said, Winston Churchill said, just keep moving through. Well, what that really is pointing towards is that things are impermanent. They do change. Things eventually change. And if you just keep pushing through it, it will change. The other thing Brian was saying is if you study Buddhism and you study how afflictive emotions, what they are, how they work, then you can, and this is where I think what they say, the antidote to afflictive doubt is understanding. So if you are studying Buddhism, practicing Buddhism, then you understand, for instance, if depression is anger turned against yourself, well then how do you deal with the anger? How do you deal with anger? What's the antidote to anger? And Brian was saying, just as happened with me, move out of yourself, see if you can get out of yourself and work to help others. Yeah, Kavita.
I'm gonna try to talk about. What I was gonna say was, there was a period of time after we started studying, and I had been in, I don't know, quite a lengthy number of years dealing with panic disorder, panic attacks, going to the hospital, thinking I'm dying. I mean, it was quite exhausting, and I had gone on medication for a while, and when we started studying Buddhism, I got off the medication little by little, and then I used this is where I think I used what they call the wisdom wing and the method wing, tapping into what Brian said, but there's a series of thoughts called the 4 seals, or sometimes they're called the 4 marks of existence. All compounded phenomena are impermanent, meaning everything is impermanent. Everything contaminated by wrong thinking is miserable, or all contaminated phenomena are suffering. All phenomena are empty and selfless was the third one. And that points to that, everything is a dependent arising causes and conditions, and cessation, or what we call nirvana, or cessation of ego self-grasping, is nirvana. So, I mean, I had a long period of time where, I could just, essentially all I could do is go, yeah, I'm miserable. Yeah, I'm self-focused. Yeah, I have anxiety. Yeah. Here's what the Buddha says the 4 marks of existence are, or the 4 seals. I would think through them. And that was like all I could do to go, okay, I guess it's worth living another day. Basically, I guess I'll get up and I'll work another day. And then the ability to focus on engaging and supporting others, only after I would do that first part could I even begin to think about, because I had done a lot. I'd previously just tried forcing myself to get out of myself. But I had to do that first series of like, okay, this is how things exist, essentially. And then, okay, so now here's Brian, here's Christopher, here's so and so and so. It was a really, like Christopher, I mean, it's a vivid and excruciating
and highly lengthy. I'd say, good 20 years, really, from the beginning of the onset of panic disorder to finally meeting Geshe Drachma, finally getting, slowly being able to, pull through the teachings. And I think he did some kind of mojo, just his presence. One of the things I did, and this is the last thing I want to say, and sorry to be so jabbery,
That's great.
but I was in psychotherapy with a psychiatrist. I also went to a Jungian analyst. But I think one of the most amazing healing aspects of that, honestly, was I had a lot of fucked up ideation going on. In some ways, not that different from Elizabeth, who we mutually know. And, it was in the process of telling that and seeing these two people who I respected, these two professionals, go, yeah, yeah. And you kind of, at a certain point, it's like, okay, so people think crazy shit. That's part of the human experience. And it's not just me,
Yeah.
So I found that to be quite healing. Actually.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point. It's not just us. It's all of us are going through this. When we were visualizing all these sentient beings around us, it's just like me. Just like me. One other thing I want to say is, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll keep it brief.
And your name is again?
Carly.
Carly.
Yeah. I had a very similar, I don't know exactly what your trauma was, but I had ongoing trauma throughout my teens. Didn't have an adult because the adults were involved in the trauma. Didn't have an adult to seek solace in, and for several years struggled with, as a result, internalizing it and it manifesting itself as obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, depression. It got to some very dark points where I needed the help of clinicians, and that was helpful. That was helpful to an extent, and I'd say I'm 33, so at around 23, I dabbled in Buddhism, but the fear and the doubt was so deafening. It was so loud that I couldn't see what, I wanted to pursue it, but I couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was dark. And eventually, I received clinical intervention and help. And then over the years, licensed therapists, who specialized in psychology, and that it was very helpful, but only up until about 26 or 27. I don't know if it was the space of time between the trauma at 14 to 18 and 27. We're talking about impermanence, and that length of time between just that time itself helped more and more. But I got to a place where through therapy and through self-discovery, that I don't know, I got to a place where I wasn't so entrapped by those thoughts and feelings. But even then, it took considerable more time, because I would say I haven't felt entrapped and in a constant cycle since having my son 2 years ago. So it definitely, that time it takes and the beauty of impermanence that it took to get there allowed me to actually start pursuing Buddhism. And my goal and my hope is to, now that I don't necessarily feel drawn to seek out, therapeutic help in the way of like psychology. My goal and hope now that I am not in the dark and not entrapped, and time has passed and impermanence has worked its magic, that I can link up with a guru, and because I I'm in a place now, you know, thanks to impermanence,
Hmm.
that I could see that being a benefit, and I can actually see it. I can be here, and I can be present with it, and I can accept it, and I'm in because I'm in the here and now. So that's a hope that I have.
Yeah.
But impermanence has been a really beautiful thing. It really has, and now whenever you asked, you know, how do you deal with the anxiety that, you know, stems up now? It actually kind of gets on the nerves of some of my family because they, you know, they want to feel those feelings, and I think that you should feel those feelings as long as they don't lead to destructive patterns. And I do feel those feelings, but for some reason, I just tell myself, this isn't permanent. Nothing is permanent, and it just
Wow, that's wonderful.
relaxes.
Yeah.
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 And I'm finally, and I can acknowledge that it took years to get there,
Hmm.
but it, you know, thanks to impermanence, and now I kind of seek refuge in that.
Yeah. But you worked on it too. I mean, you were,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You were
Oh,
working on it.
yes, yes.
Also, you mentioned it wasn't until your son was born. Well, there again, it's sort of getting out of yourself.
Exactly.
You know, and that's a huge,
Absorption.
I think that's a huge element. I think that's why this altruistic intention is so beneficial and so healthy for all of us, you know. It's really, really great.
He keeps me present.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway, thank you all for that. I really did want to address that because it's one of the most difficult, you know, of these afflictive emotions, and and I think we all, to some degree, have dealt with it, and it's good to hear. It's really good to hear, you know, your take
How
on
would
it.
you summarize defining afflictive doubt then? What would be kind of a overarching?
It's basically a confusion. I mean, it's a confusion that leads to a wrong conclusion. It's a wrong afflictive doubt itself, just like any of these emotions. Doubt itself is not bad. You can have healthy doubt. Skepticism is a good thing. To question things is a very good thing. It's when the questioning is all the answers are going in the wrong direction. And then it basically goes, it's like me. I'm bad. I'm wrong. I'm afflicted. I'm worthless, you know, and it's the wrong conclusion. But we can get ourselves into such a downward spiral that it can be that can be very, very difficult to get out of. And Venerable Rabina says this, it does, you know, sometimes intervention in terms of therapeutic drugs, medicine, is necessary because you've actually changed your chemistry, because you've become so depressed, so anxiety ridden, that you need something to get your chemistry back functioning. But that's not that's a temporary solution. What happens a lot of times is people will turn to drugs, they'll turn to alcohol, they'll turn to smoke, whatever it may be, thinking, I feel better. And then they just get addicted to that. And it doesn't actually solve the problem. The problem is always solved at the level of the mind, not some substance out there. Some of these therapeutic drugs can help to shift your chemistry back to then you can work correctly with your mind. But it's not the solution. Okay, thank you for all of that. All right, now I want to get into, now we're moving into the ethics part of this. We've discussed the destructive emotions. We've discussed some of the antidotes, and I'm really grateful to all the help on this one with the afflictive doubt. I want to now talk about, before we get into how we live ethically, the way we can use these, their tools to live ethically every day. I want to read a little bit about what the Dalai Lama has to say about compassion, because compassion, this desire to ease the suffering of others, which is what compassion is. Either it could be, you could have self-compassion too, the desire to ease your own compassion, and the desire to ease the suffering of others, is a basis for ethical behavior. Okay. Compassion, the foundation of well-being. Like all other mammals, we humans are born from our mothers And for some time after birth, we are utterly dependent on attention of our mothers or other caring adults. For 9 months, we are nurtured in our mother's womb, and at the moment of birth, we are completely helpless. We can neither sit nor crawl, let alone stand or walk. And without the care and attention of others, we cannot survive. In this state of absolute vulnerability, our first act as a newborn baby is to suck at our mother's breast. And with her milk, we are nurtured and given strength. In fact, the period of dependency for young humans is particularly long. This goes for all of us, including even the worst criminals. Without another's loving care, none of us would have lived more than a few days. As a result of this intense need for others in our early development, a disposition toward affection is a part of our biology. This is a characteristic we share with many other mammals and also birds, all those creatures whose early survival depends on receiving care from others. All such animals clearly experience some kind of feeling of connection or bonding. Even if we can't quite call it affection, they all have some kind of feeling of closeness. In contrast, we are unlike turtles or butterflies, which lay their eggs and then leave them, never to see their offspring again. Or chickens, some chickens. For such animals, there is no period of nurture, so I wonder if they can appreciate affection. Recently, during a talk at Oxford University, I suggested, only half joking, that the scientists in the audience might do some research on this. Do those animals that do not require any period of nurture recognize their parents, for example? Somehow, I doubt it. It is something I would be very interested to observe. But for humans, with our prolonged period of nurture, the role of others' concern and affection is obviously crucial to our survival and well-being. Recent medical research shows that the very physical touch of one's mother or caregiver during early infancy is a crucial factor in the physical enlargement of the brain. And modern psychology confirms that the care we receive as infants and children has a profound impact on our emotional and psychological development. This research also shows that people who lack affection as children are more likely to have a deep-seated sense of insecurity in later life. A program that I came to know some years ago is working to improve the care provided by orphanages in some troubled parts of Latin America. The measures this program promotes are the fruit of considerable scientific and psychological research, but they are also quite simple, really matters of common sense, since they all reflect the crucial role of human warmth and affection in our mental and physical development. The measures include, for example, housing children in smaller, more intimate dormitories, and assigning them in small groups to individual caregivers, so they have a chance to develop something like natural family relationships. In the case of babies, caregivers are encouraged to use plenty of physical contact and to talk to the children and look into their eyes when changing their nappies and so on. Such measures, though simple, can have an impact which lasts a lifetime. Our dependence on others is most apparent in childhood, but it does not end there. Whenever we face difficulties in life, we turn to others for support. When we are ill, for instance, we go to a doctor. Throughout our lives, even our physical health benefits from simple human affection and warmth. Recovery itself is not just a matter of receiving the right medical treatment or putting the right chemicals into our bloodstream, but is also dependent to a significant degree on the human care we receive. We also depend greatly on the warmth and kindness of others when we reach the end of our lives. How much better it is to depart from this world surrounded by love and affection in an environment of peace and happiness than to be surrounded by indifference or hostility in an environment of discord and resentment. Considered from a purely rational point of view, the way others feel about us when we are about to die should not matter to us, since when we are gone, their attitudes cannot affect us. But in fact, we care intensely. At the point of death, the goodwill of others matters to us profoundly. This is simply a fact of human nature. Of course, humans are not alone in this dependence on the warmth and affection of others. Scientific studies yield similar conclusions with regard to various other mammals that also require nurture. For example, I recently heard a presentation by some scientists concerning the behavior of monkeys. They had observed that young monkeys who lived with their mothers were, by and large, more playful and less quarrelsome than those separated from their mothers at birth. The ones that had been separated from their mothers exhibited aggressive behavior, suggesting that they were emotionally agitated and lacking an inner sense of security. Another study demonstrated the role of
Well,
grooming.
I'm sorry, that makes me think about tearing, moving kids from the home at earlier and earlier ages,
Oh, you mean putting kids into
Yeah, pre-K.
pre-K and all that at early and early ages, removing them? Yeah, it may be sociologically, it may be a mistake to be doing it so soon. Even rats that have been specially bred to be anxious responded positively to being licked, and their anxious behavior gradually subsided under the influence of such attention. Scientists were even able to trace physical changes in the brains of these unfortunate animals, showing that grooming actually released soothing chemicals in the brain and lowered the levels of stress hormones in the body. In all this, I do not want to propose that our well-being is entirely passive or dependent on the way others treat us. Even more important than the warmth and affection we receive are the warmth and affection we give. It is through giving warmth and affection, through being genuinely concerned for others, in other words, through compassion, that we gain the conditions for genuine happiness. For this reason, loving is of even greater importance than being loved. Many people mistakenly assume that compassion is a religious practice. This is not the case. It is true that compassion is central to the ethical teachings of all the major religious traditions, but in itself, it is not a religious value. As I've said, many animals can appreciate it, and certainly mammals have a capacity for it. Many people also assume that feeling compassion for others is only good for the others and not for oneself. This is also incorrect. Whether or not our kindness brings benefit to others will depend on a great many factors, some of which will be outside our control. But whether we succeed in bringing benefit to others or not, the first beneficiary of compassion is always oneself. When compassion or warm-heartedness arises in us and shifts our focus away from our own narrow self-interest, it is as if we open an inner door. Compassion reduces our fear, boosts our confidence, and brings us inner strength. By reducing distrust, it opens us to others and brings us a sense of connection with them and a sense of purpose and meaning in life. Compassion also gives us respite from our own difficulties. The observation that our concern for others contributes to our own well-being is also supported by scientific research. There is now increasing scientific evidence that love, kindness, trust, and so on have not only psychological benefits, but also observable benefits to physical health. I know of one recent study showing that the deliberate cultivation of love and compassion can even affect our DNA itself. An impact has been observed on the parts of our DNA known as telomeres, which are associated by medical science with the process of aging. It has also been shown that negative emotions such as anxiety, anger, and resentment undermine our ability to combat illness and infection. A scientist friend recently told me that persistent negative emotions like these actually eat away at our immune system. The inseparable relationship between mental and emotional states on the one hand and well-being and health on the other suggests to me that the very constitution of our bodies guides us toward positive emotions. As I often say, an appreciation for love and affection seems to be built into our very blood cells. There's nothing inherently wrong with pursuing one's own interests. On the contrary, to do so is a natural expression of our fundamental disposition to seek happiness and to shun suffering. In fact, it is because we care for our own needs that we have the natural capacity to appreciate others' kindness and love. This instinct for self-interest becomes negative only when we are excessively self-focused. When this happens, our vision narrows, undermining our ability to see things in their wider context. And within such a narrow perspective, even small problems can create tremendous frustration and seem unbearable in such a state. Should these genuinely major challenges arise, the danger is that we will lose all hope, feel desperate and alone, and be consumed with self-pity. What is important is that when pursuing our own self-interest, we should be wise selfish, not foolish selfish. Being foolish selfish means pursuing our own interests in a narrow, short-sighted way. Being wise selfish means taking a broader view and recognizing that our own long-term individual interest lies in the welfare of everyone. Being wise selfish means being compassionate. So the human capacity to care for others is not something trivial or something to be taken for granted. Rather, it is something we should cherish. Compassion is a marvel of human nature, a precious inner resource, and the foundation of our well-being and the harmony of our societies. If therefore we seek happiness for ourselves, we should practice compassion. And if we seek happiness for others, we should also practice compassion. That fits into, exactly what we were talking about on this, when we were talking about afflictive doubt, that getting out of this self-absorption and then sort of opening up to others is the way that we're going to find some relief from that. The other thing I want to say is that in Buddhism, Buddhism is the path to enlightenment is, they say there are two wings to it, and that one wing is called the method wing, or it's also called the compassion wing. It's all of those things that we do, the methods that we do, that we adopt. It has to do with ethics and compassion and loving kindness and all of these things. That's essential. It's an essential part of the Buddhist path. The other one is called the wisdom wing, where we actually begin to understand the nature of what the self actually is and the nature of what phenomena actually is. And first, this is slowly we study and we develop a intellectual kind of appreciation or understanding of what they call emptiness or interdependence or dependent arising. And ultimately what you get to the point through meditative practices, which we will, in the last session, we'll do just a small little meditative practice to try and get to a bit of this. But through these meditative practices, you actually then can have a direct experience, a non-conceptual direct experience of this nature of reality, the nature of what the self is and what phenomena is. And you combine that with that compassion wing, and boom, you're a Buddha. Well, we're talking like 3 countless eons. But since our clear light mind is continuous from beginningless time and it's endless and it just keeps going, it's not really not too much to worry about. Kind of enjoy the ride, really. The more we do it, the better it's going to get.
So I can see how compassion is beneficial to making yourself and others happy. I can see how compassion underlies moral ethical decision making. But my question then is there a limit to one's compassion that one gives to another sentient being?
I'm going to answer for you.
Okay.
There's no limit to the compassion itself. The compassion itself, is a train of
Speak up so that.
There's no limit to the compassion itself. There's no limit to the thoughts and feelings, the intentions, the wish for the other to be happy. Let's, remember what compassion is the wish that somebody be free from suffering. On a practical level, you have to separate physical activity, behaviors, interventions from your compassion. What you do and
the motivation of compassion are different. And it can lead to the most compassionate response in terms of action is to do nothing. A really silly example is when a mother is watching her baby learn to walk, and if the baby is falling down and the mother never steps back and lets the baby discover that falling down and standing up are things it has the capability, that's the more compassionate thing, is to do nothing, to withdraw. So there's no limit to the compassion itself. And I'm going to guess somewhere embedded in your question is, well, you know, there's this doing that there has to be a limit to the doing. Surely there's a limit to the doing. There must be. And I think, you know, again, you know, all of us are smart people. We're not ignorant of the fact that the baby won't learn that it can stand up and walk if you don't just let it stand up and walk. Same with riding a bike, you've got to fall down. Same with everything,
And you
Yeah,
go,
I think there's like a
So
very,
I don't know.
like,
I mean, I'm just gonna say there's no
thin
limit
line.
to compassion, but in terms of the doing, in terms of how it manifests in our actions.
well, and I think there can be a concern too, when we think of compassion. I feel like there can be it's like a balancing act in terms of compassion between compassion and enabling.
Right.
absolutely, yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's, it could be so easy to feel like you are being compassionate when you may be more so enabling.
You know what? I'm gonna say enabling is the selfish face
Right.
of quote compassion.
Exactly.
It's the selfish.
And I feel like
enabling
it's
is
so
always
easy.
selfish.
Yes.
Enabling is always selfish.
Always selfish.
100%. Use your brain and analyze the train you're going down. You can justify it and call it what you will, but yeah.
I mean, you're right. There's never too much compassion, but there is enabling.
I mean, and you can label it compassion. Look, we all
You can
justify
label
our
it
actions.
compassion.
What about compassion, honey? I gotta keep feeding those chickens because
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a limit.
Yeah. This is where I kind of go back to those two wings I was talking about, the wisdom wing and the compassion wing.
Right.
They have to be balanced.
Yes.
I think
Lack of wisdom will wind up in idiot compassion.
I'm sorry
You know?
to be so verbose today, but there is a thing that we as practitioners need to be super vigilant about, and that is this confusing compassion with enabling.
Exactly.
And confusing, well, I have compassion burnout. There is no such thing as compassion burnout. You can mislabel your afflictive thoughts and feelings
You're right.
that may be more along with afflictive doubt and enabling. Afflictive doubt being so overwhelmed by the world and all this crap. That is not compassion.
Mm.
It sounds like
Strip
you're not
away all this
practicing
bullshit,
self-compassion.
and compassion is merely the authentic wish that another person be happy. Now, a Buddha can't solve everybody's problem because they'd be solved. So, but there's a lot of Christopher's you're referencing in your reminder that wisdom, compassion on its own will lead to afflictive enabling and burnout, because you're basically, I don't even know how to describe it. I've been involved in peace organizations and all kinds of different spiritual thingies, and I definitely know there's a whole stream of folks who are calling compassion afflictive, self-enabling la la land. And I'm gonna one last thing. I'm gonna be mindful, folks. This is a hard ass practitioner. You cannot mix up fact with fiction. And when you hear someone say, oh, it's and both, be very critical in your thinking, logical in your thinking, because hot and cold are two different factors. Compassion and malice are two different factors. You can't have, it's not and both. You have to choose at some point, either you're going to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Either you're going to commit to change or you're going to allow yourself to be poor me, blah, 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 blah. It is, I mean, if you ever hear someone in these circles telling you, oh, but it's and both, they're giving you permission to not change.
So that when everybody's, there's a common term that just says it's all good. And that's it. In Buddhism, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, somebody said
Yeah.
that to me, there was a Christian. I said, yeah, so says Satan, you know.
Anyway, all right, we need to move on to cover everything here. So, and we may not even get to the meditation. We'll see.
I'm sorry.
But no, this is
I gotta
good.
go excuse myself for a second.
This is all really
I'm
good.
going to go do an afflictive chicken intervention.
Oh.
I forgot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Chicken.
So now I want to
A
talk.
chicken died a couple days ago.
Oh, it was very
because of the
sad.
heat, so it's.
Yeah. And even though, you know, they can lay their eggs and forget about them, chickens do respond to compassion and
I
emotion. And
absolutely
yeah, I mean,
believe
they
that.
were, and this was the sweetest chicken who
I
died.
believe
It was
that.
the sweetest, the one who wanted to jump in Kavita's arms every night before they went to bed and talk to us. And it was heat got her. It was very sad. You know? Anyway, so, and that's samsara.
They stay inside the air conditioned coop, fine. But
Yeah.
Go out and roll around, you know, walk out in the heat.
Yeah. I mean, Geshe Drapa used to say to us, and he would tilt his head like this when we would talk about things that were wrong in the world and what are we doing? And he would just go, samsara. It's sort of like, what don't you get? This is what this is. The Buddha's the first of the noble truths. There is suffering. This is what's going on. There's something that causes it. Find out what causes it, and then you do something about it. There's a solution. So that's important to remember. What I love about Buddhism is its clarity in that regard. We can get so confused. All right, I want to read now about every day how we can put ethical mindfulness into our everyday life. Ethics is not simply a matter of knowing. More important, it is about doing. For this reason, even the most sophisticated ethical understanding, if it is not applied in daily life, is somewhat pointless. Living ethically requires not only the conscious adoption of an ethical outlook, but also a commitment to developing and applying inner values in our daily lives. Now, regarding the question of how to put ethics into practice in everyday life, it may be helpful to consider the process as having three aspects or three levels, each progressively more advanced and dependent for its success on the former level. As outlined in some classical Buddhist texts, these are as follows: an ethic of restraint, deliberately refraining from doing actual or potential harm to others; an ethic of virtue, actively cultivating and enhancing our positive behavior and inner values; and the third, an ethic of altruism, dedicating our lives genuinely and selflessly to the welfare of others. To be effective, these three stages, I'll say them again: restraint, cultivating virtue, and cultivating altruism. These three stages must be considered in relation to all our behavior. In other words, not just in relation to our outward physical actions, but also in relation to what we say and ultimately to our very thoughts and intentions. And of these three levels of behavior, body, speech, and mind, the most important is the mind as the source of everything we do and say. To concentrate our attention only on actions of body and speech would be like a doctor addressing only the symptoms of an illness rather than its underlying cause. For a treatment to be effective, it must also address the source of the problem. In view of this, that's something else about the final chapters. Before moving on to the subject of educating the heart through training the mind, I should first say a few words about the importance of abandoning destructive habits of body and speech as it is this which constitutes the first stage in the practice of ethics. And this is the ethic of restraint. Regarding certain kinds of obviously harmful behavior, all the world's major faiths and the humanistic traditions converge. Murder, theft, and inappropriate sexual conduct, such as sexual exploitation, are by definition harmful to others. So of course they should be abandoned. But the ethic of restraint calls for more than this. Before we can contemplate actively benefiting others, we must first of all ensure that we do them no harm, even by our actions which are not immediately violent. With regard to this principle of doing no harm, I am particularly impressed and humbled by my brothers and sisters in the Jain tradition. Jainism, which is something like a twin religion to Buddhism, places great emphasis on the virtue of nonviolence, or ahimsa, toward all beings. For example, Jain monks go to great lengths to ensure that they do not accidentally tread on insects or harm other living beings in their everyday activities. However, the exemplary behavior of Jain monks and nuns is hard for all of us to emulate. Even for those whose circle of primary concern is restricted to humanity rather than encompassing all sentient beings, it can be very hard not to contribute to harming others through our actions in indirect ways. Consider, for example, how rivers come to be polluted, perhaps by mining companies extracting minerals, or industrial plants producing components that are crucial to the technologies we use on a daily basis. Every user of those technologies thereby is partly responsible for the pollution and thus contributes negatively to the lives of others. Unfortunately, it is perfectly possible to harm others indirectly through our actions without any intention of doing so. So, realistically, I think the most important thing we can all do is minimize the harm we inflict in our everyday lives. The way to do that is to apply discernment in our behavior and to follow that natural sense of conscientiousness which arises from the enhanced awareness that discernment brings. Harm caused by nonviolent means. While harm inflicted by outward actions can normally be seen, the suffering we inflict on others with words can be more hidden, but it is often no less damaging. This is particularly the case in our closest, most intimate relationships. We humans are quite sensitive, and it is easy to inflict suffering on those around us through our careless use of harsh words. We can also inflict harm with dishonesty, slander, and divisive gossip. No doubt we have all, at some time or another, felt the negative consequences of such idle talk. It undermines trust and affection and can create all kinds of unfortunate misunderstandings and enmities between people. Here, as in other areas, we need to observe the golden rule found in all of the world's ethical systems. Treat others as you would wish to be treated yourself, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you. When it comes to avoiding harmful actions of body and speech, in addition to this fundamental rule, I personally find a list of 6 principles from a text by the 2nd century Indian thinker Nagarjuna to be helpful in this text. In this text, Nagarjuna is offering advice to an Indian monarch of the time. The 6 principles are as follows. Avoid excessive use of intoxicants. Avoid the principle of right livelihood. Ensure that one's body, speech, and mind are nonviolent. Treat others with respect. Honor those worthy of esteem, such as parents, teachers, and those who are kind. And be kind to others. In spelling out what constitutes right livelihood, Nagarjuna lists the following examples of a wrong approach to livelihood: trying to gain material benefits from others through pretense, using attractive words to gain things from others through deceit, praising another's possessions with the intention of trying to obtain them for oneself, forcibly taking what belongs to someone else, and extolling the qualities of what one has obtained in the past with the hope of receiving more. Most of these pertain in one form or another to being dishonest. Dishonesty destroys the foundations of others' trust, and is profoundly harmful. Transparency in our dealings with others is therefore tremendously important. Many of the scandals we hear about today, notably the corruption, which is observable at so many levels and in so many fields, government, the judiciary, international finance, politics, media, even international sports. And this was written in 2011. I mean, I think it's just gotten worse. These are all related to the issue of right livelihood. Okay, now we go into what he calls the toolkit of what we do every day to work on our ethics. Heedfulness, mindfulness, and awareness. Just as a carpenter would not think of mending a chair without having a chisel, hammer, and saw near at hand, so too do we require a basic toolkit to help us in our daily effort to live ethically. In Buddhist tradition, this toolkit is described in terms of three interrelated factors known as heedfulness, mindfulness, and introspective awareness. These three ideas may also be useful in a secular context. Together, they can help us retain our core values in everyday life and guide our day-to-day behavior so that it becomes more in tune with the aim of bringing benefit to self and others. The first of these, heedfulness, refers to adopting an overall stance of caution. The Tibetan term bakya, often translated as heedfulness or conscientiousness, carries the sense of being careful and attentive. For example, if we are diagnosed as having diabetes, the doctor will advise us to be very careful with our diet. We must avoid sugar, salt, and fatty foods to keep our blood pressure and insulin in check. The doctor will warn us that if we fail to adhere to this dietary regime, there may be serious consequences for our health. When patients care about their health, they will follow this advice and adopt an attitude of caution regarding their diet. When they are tempted to eat something they should avoid, this attitude or stance of caution will help them exercise restraint. Today, there are many secularized techniques for the development of mindfulness, and these have been shown to be effective in stress reduction and the treatment of depression. As I understand it, mindfulness in this context usually refers to gaining awareness of our own patterns of behavior, including thoughts and feelings, and learning to let go of these habits, thoughts, and emotions which are unhelpful. This seems a very worthwhile endeavor. How we might go about further developing this kind of awareness we'll turn to in some of the meditations. Yet, in the context of living ethically on a day-to-day basis, in my view, the most important meaning of mindfulness is recollection. In other words, mindfulness is the ability to gather oneself mentally and thereby recall one's core values and motivation. In Tibetan, the word for mindfulness, drenpa, also means memory. So it suggests bringing presence of mind into everyday activities. With such recollection, we are less likely to indulge our bad habits and more likely to refrain from harmful deeds. Littering, being wasteful, and overindulging oneself are all simple examples of behavior which can be improved through the application of mindfulness. So that's the second of those three tools. There's heedfulness, the caution, and then the mindfulness, sort of remembering. Awareness, the third, or sheshin in Tibetan, means paying attention to our own behavior. It means honestly observing our behavior as it is going on, and thereby bringing it under control. By being aware of our words and our actions, we guard ourselves against doing and saying things we will later regret. When we're angry, for instance, and if we fail to recognize that our anger is distorting our perception, we may say things we do not mean. So having the ability to monitor oneself, having, as it were, a second order level of attention, is of great practical use in everyday life, as it gives us greater control over our negative behavior and enables us to remain true to our deeper motives and convictions. Such awareness of our own behavior, our actions, thoughts, and words, is not something we can learn overnight. Rather, it develops gradually, and as we become more aware, we slowly gain mastery. To some readers, this mental toolkit may sound very like the advice to listen to your conscience, an idea which plays an important role in many religious approaches to the practice of ethics. And indeed, there are many similarities between the two. In some religions, conscience is regarded as a precious gift from God, which makes human beings uniquely moral creatures. From a secular perspective, we may understand conscience as a product of our biological nature as social animals, or as something we acquire from society through our upbringing and environment. Either way, all sane and responsible people will surely agree that this quality is of great significance with respect to our moral sensibility. Whatever one's views about religion, the idea of a person devoid of conscience, without any inner voice of restraint or moral responsibility, is truly frightening. Practicing awareness is not quite the same as listening to your conscience, however. In Buddhist ethical theory, there is no idea of the conscience as a distinct mental faculty. But being conscientious is still very important. It is described in terms of two key mental qualities, namely self-respect and consideration of others. The first of these, self-respect, relates to having a sense of personal integrity, a self-image as a person who upholds certain values. So, when we are tempted to indulge in harmful behavior, our self-image acts as a restraint, as we think, this is unbecoming of me. The second mental quality, consideration of others, pertains to having a healthy regard for others' opinions, especially for their potential disapproval. Together, these two factors give us an added level of caution about doing wrong, which can strengthen our moral compass. So I'll stop there. We got 5 minutes, so I will we'll just do the closing prayers, and we'll do, the last session. This is the third session. The last of these 5 sessions is going to be focused on meditation. So if we don't get to meditation in some of these sessions, we will get to meditation for sure in the last one. So I'm going to now share the screen. You all have your prayer sheets. Okay. And we are at the dedication prayers. And then in Buddhism, this is always this is super important. They always do this. They always talk about dedicating the merit of anything that we've done, basically to the enlightenment of all sentient beings, so that it places it. They say it's like placing it in the safety of a really good bank, where you don't pay interest, you actually gain interest. So this dedication of merit by all of our teachers is super, super important. And you don't end any of your meditation practices or any class that you do in a Buddhist context without the dedication of this merit. And then the other prayers here are talking about this altruistic mind that we have been referring to, and that in the opening visualization, developing this intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. This prayer is saying any part of that mind that has not yet been born, may it be born, may it grow, and any part that has been born, any little inkling we may have about that, may that continue to grow, may it continue to grow. And then the last of the 3 prayers is about this view of emptiness, which is the view of the correct view of the nature of the self, the correct view of the nature of phenomena. Right now, we have a completely wrong view. We see the self as being something that exists independently from its own side, and we see other phenomena out there, including our body, as existing independently from its own side. We don't actually see the interdependent relationship. We don't see the dependent arising nature of what we are and what everything is. So this is the same thing. It's saying, may this view of emptiness, this view of, or you could say the flip side of emptiness is a view of dependent arising or interdependence. May any view that we have, may that continue to grow. And may any part of that view that hasn't been born, may it be born and may it grow. So that's what these prayers are saying. Okay, dedication of merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that we may liberate all sentient beings from suffering. And then we can chant these in the, it's a simple little Tibetan tune, and this is the Tibetan transliteration of the English translation under these words. Jang chupsam chogrim poche ma kye panam kye gyurchi kye panyam pa me payam gong ne gong du perwa shu tong ye tawa rimpoche ma kye panam Kye gyurchi, kye panyam pa, me payam, gong ne gong du, pelwa shu. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the discussion, great discussion, very helpful. Thank you, everybody out there. Good seeing you all.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, Roxanne. All right, start to share. Merritt, Nick, Terry, and person on phone. I love you. Okay,
you,
see you
thank
later.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Merritt.
We're so happy to see your name there on the screen.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yay. Well, I'll see you Tuesday.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, Covita. I think that's you.
Okay, leave. That was great.